Continuing with our FD RX7 restoration rebuild, resto mod, call it whatever you want. We need to try to get this thing to become a rolling chassis as soon as possible. With having incoming customer cars, I'd like to be able to roll the RX7 in and out of the shop. Unfortunately, I know we're not going to be able to get through it all in this video because my my PBM, Power by Max, rear upper control arms don't come in. I'm still missing a front lower control arm and a whole bunch of other smaller little suspension bits, but I want to try to get this thing as close to possible. We have new front and rear wheel bearings that got to go into this thing and a ton more. So let's start today off by knocking out some wheel bearings. We just got a whole bunch of stuff back from powder coat, so that way we can at least try to get some stuff back on this car. You know, pressing wheel bearings myself, I've never really gotten along. I've always destroyed the wheel bearing somehow, either installing the new one or pressing the old. I mean, I guess if you press the old one out, it really doesn't matter if you destroy it, but these ones came out relatively nicely, surprisingly. The spindle just popped right out. Figured that we'd put in some extended wheel studs, so we might as well knock out those old ones. And I wanted to clean up these knuckles quite a bit because the prior owner had spray painted them silver gray. It's not even silver, it's like a weird gray. So toss them in the blaster, got them sand blasted real quickly because I want to make these things look minty. I opted to leave the inner wheel bearing in when I did sandblast it, just to protect the mating surface, I guess you could call it, where the new wheel bearing is going to go in. It just seemed a little bit easier than masking everything off. Old wheel bearing. The not so fun part about these press-in wheel bearings is the inner race of the wheel bearing will sometimes get stuck on the spindle like this, and if you have an acetylene torch, you can typically heat them up and they'll slide right off. I don't have one, so I have to resort to cutting the race and then breaking it with a chisel, and then we can kind of slide it off like that. Like everything else we've been doing with the knuckles, I want to make sure that they look as new as can be. For essentially any part that we're reusing or refinishing, I want to make it look new again. And with that, obviously the knuckles, the brackets, all that stuff. Now, when it comes to the coating, we've been using a color from Columbia Coatings called Super Satin Black, I want to say it is. I'll link it down below if you guys are interested in this color. And it lays out so nicely. It's not overly glossy, it's not flat, it's kind of like that sweet spot right in the middle. Since we just powder coated these knuckles, I wanted to make sure they were a little bit warm. So with the wheel bearing, I tossed that in the freezer for a couple of hours to make putting these in a lot, just to make it go a lot smoother. I have a history with press-in wheel bearings of destroying them when I go to put them in. So freezing the bearing is gonna shrink it, heating the knuckles gonna expand it, and then using the old bearing to press in the new one makes life go super easy because the bearing size is just perfect. Because I can't put the rear hubs on until we get our rear upper control arms in from PBM, I figured I'd toss the headliner in. And I thought this was going to be way easier than it was because it was pretty easy to take out, but putting it back in was an entirely different story. And it's not necessarily the headliner, it's just trying to get the headliner and the sunroof to mate up nicely to where everything kind of seals up where it needs to go. Eventually we did get it in there, but the inner seal on it it fought me for so long. headliner was situated, I decided to pop open a couple of boxes that we had got in, which was one of our one of our front lower control arms, some brake pads, some tie rod ends, and a couple things from JP3, as well as a whole bunch of stuff back from Powder Coat, such as a couple more hubs, spindles, brake pedal and clutch pedal boxes, wiper motor arms, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I figured we'd kind of knock out this nice little pile that we got back from Ben and start getting it on the car. The first one I wanted to jump on was the spindle. Now with RX7s, you need to put wheel studs in prior to putting the spindle in if you're going to be going with extended studs, because you will not be able to fit these extended studs into the spindle while installed on the car without destroying the wheel bearing. So got some new ARP extended studs on there and then tossed that thing in the freezer for a couple of hours, similar to what we did with the wheel bearing. We want to make sure that we can get this spindle cold so that way it will shrink up a little bit as we go to press it into the new wheel bearing. And you have to support that wheel bearing from the backside, otherwise you're going to push out the inner race and destroy your brand new wheel bearing. So make sure that you are supporting the backside of the bearing. Make sure that you do chill your spindle, and it should go in relatively nicely like this. Looks like we got one. So, here's that. Yeah. Whoa, the RX7 has a control arm in it again. I mentioned that we got some stuff in from JP3. They sell a lot of like one-off kind of cool RX7 stuff, and they had these little headlight retractor adjuster cover thing, so snagged a set of those. I have my old ones, but they're just kind of beat. Now since we're already in the engine bay, I wanted to get the wiper motor arms reinstalled after coming back from Cerakote, and I had also powder coated the wiper motor cover, but I didn't realize there were magnets in it, and when you put magnets in the oven, it demagnetizes the magnets, and the magnets also kind of crumbled and fell apart. So I need to buy a new one at this point. So I would not suggest putting magnets in your oven. It's probably not the smartest idea. It'll kill the magnets, so just don't do it. This little post is something I've been eyeballing for a long time for the RX7. With moving the battery from the engine bay into the trunk or the bins or wherever you're gonna put it, you don't have a spot to put the fusible block that would normally connect up to the battery in the engine bay. So they have this nice little post with a power link on it, so that way you can also jump start or trickle charge your car from the engine bay with having your battery relocated to the trunk. So it's kind of a cool little piece. I've been wanting it for a while, and it cleans up the engine bay a little bit so you don't have that thing flopping around. The last thing I wanted to toss in that we had just sitting around was our coolant crossover pipe. It's not really a coolant crossover pipe, but it goes from the heater core to the engine, and it just looked so good sitting on the table. I wanted to see it in the engine bay. The black powder coat against the white paint on the car looks so good. The contrast just complements it so freaking well. This is another piece that I'd gotten from JP3, and it's a fuel tank cover for the hatch, and it looks good in the raw steel look. Don't get me wrong, it might be aluminum, I don't remember, but I wanted to get it powder coated just to match everything else we're doing, so tossed in the sandblaster just to get the powder coat to adhere to it a little bit better. Having that rough finish on it from the aluminum oxide in the blaster just makes it so the powder coat will last longer. So got this thing powder coated, looks absolutely beautiful, just like everything else that we're doing in this color. I got in the union for the rear brake lines here. I think I'm gonna pull this long line back out and go drop it off to Ben. I had rubber coated this, but after seeing how these Cerakoted lines came out, dude, they look way better. So I think I'm gonna pull this one back out next time I'm over here, go drop that off to Ben, have it Cerakoted as well. But these rear brake lines are in. It's a crossover that goes from this side up over the rear subframe to the other side, and then goes to a union there that goes to the long line that comes up into the engine bay. That thing goes up to our brake booster delete there with our brake bias. I also did put in a Del clamp right there to hold it down. I got these arms tossed back on. I don't know if you guys remember, if I have any footage of it, but these used to be pink. I want to say these are Megan Racing, and honestly, it's not a bad little Heim joint control arm. It's just I don't know why it was pink. So we have another one that's getting Cerakoted the same color. The central point of it is going to be this alien silver. It matches our sway bar right here. And then these ends are just Cerakoted because we can't toss those into the oven because they are Heim joints. We don't want to mess with them or destroy them or anything like that. I wish I had taken more photos of the pedal assemblies before tearing them apart. Luckily, I was able to find some pictures on eBay of some people selling them who took thorough photos. So if you're selling a clutch pedal or a brake pedal for an RX7 on eBay and you posted all those photos, I appreciate you. But these things look incredibly better. These things were so freaking rusty before I brought them up and had them sandblasted and recoated. And they almost look brand new. I cleaned up the pedals as much as I could, but with age and the pedals being aluminum, they just kind of get an oxidation layer on them, and it's very difficult to clean off. I didn't want to Cerakote them or powder coat them just because I like the contrast of that like raw silver look on them, but finally figured out how to get them back together. Now getting them in was a totally different story because the clutch pedal just did not want to go back in the car. The brake pedal went in pretty easy, but the clutch pedal was fighting us a lot. I'm still trying to figure out what seats I want to put in this car. I honestly think I might just find some like new seat covers or reupholster these seats and rock these because dude, the RX7 is such a small car. Any bucket style seat is just gonna make it such a pain in the butt to get in and out of the car all the time that I think the stock seats, dude, the touring stock seats really aren't bad. They're comfy, they're leather, so maybe we'll just use these ones. I'm not against using the factory seats in this car that came with it. I've got all these parts in front of me to go drop off to Ben. We have our excessive upper intake manifold, turblown upper intake manifold, turblown single turbo exhaust manifold or dump tubes. I had Cerakoted most of that hot side stuff, but I didn't have a sandblaster at the time, so a lot of that coating is failing and just flaking off. I do need to get our hot side of the turbo up to Ben, but I'm gonna worry about that a little bit later. I'm not gonna stress that right this second. I'm debating if I wanna send the Borg Warner out for a T51R mod. Not 100% certain if I want to yet or not, but we'll find out. But I'm thinking in the next video, we knock out a little bit more body work. We got both of our doors, our hood, the headlight buckets, and the gas cap cover that all still need painted. I'm fingers crossed that our clear coat shows up today or tomorrow, but at the bare minimum, we can at least get them all primed and ready to go, so that way our hood that's back there, we got one door there and another door down there behind our wheels and tires right there, just to try to get all that back on the car because it's so close to looking like a full car again. Once we get all the suspension on, we can put wheels and tires on it, we can actually roll it around with all the body panels on, it'll be mint, and I can't wait to see it at that point, but we're just not quite there yet. But it's all right, we'll get through it. Next video, let's try to focus on some body work again. I'm trying to like take a break from the body work stuff whenever I can, do a little bit of mechanical stuff, assembly, bodywork, assembly, bodywork, assembly, bodywork, assembly. We're almost there all. Cannot wait. But with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. So if you liked the video, if you're hyped to see the RX7 come back together, you know what to do. Go and hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be able to put it in one of these corners, no idea which one quite yet. But with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies. Woo!